Imagine for a second that you are orchestrating this massive, incredibly high-stakes move. But you're not just, packing up desks and changing offices.
Right.
I want you to imagine that you have to transplant the very brain, like the entire memory and the core personality of your entire customer operations.
Yeah, that's a wild thought.
And you have to do it overnight. Every single thing your company knows about its customers, every frustration they've ever voiced, every feature request they've begged for, every unwritten promise your support team has ever made to them, it all has to be picked up, surgically removed, and dropped into a completely new body. And when that new body wakes up the next morning, it has to function perfectly.
No pressure. Yeah.
Exactly. No memory loss, no grogginess, no asking your oldest clients to remind you who they are. So whether you are an IT leader staring down the barrel of a massive infrastructure overhaul, or you're just someone fascinated by how massive global enterprises somehow avoid catastrophic operational failures every single day, this deep dive is for you.
It really is. It's the ultimate high-wire act in enterprise technology right now. And the reality that, frankly, nobody really has to talk about is that most companies fall off the wire.
Yeah.
They lose their balance, the data scatters, and the consequences for the business are just, they're completely devastating.
And the crazy thing is, massive enterprises attempt this transplant every single day.
Every day.
And the failure rates are terrifying. So today, we're figuring out how to survive it. We are unpacking the exact mechanics of how enterprises can successfully execute a support CRM migration.
Right, which is huge.
Yeah, we've been looking at some really fascinating engineering blueprints and risk reduction frameworks put together by Napol Sedable, who is a solutions engineer over at SupportLogic. Okay, let's unpack this. Why is there suddenly this massive wave of companies putting themselves through this brain transplant level trauma right now in 2025 and 2026?
Well, it comes down to a perfect storm of immense corporate pressures, really. You have massive M&A consolidation, companies buying other companies and realizing they have 5 different support systems that can't talk to each other.
Right. Total nightmare.
Exactly. Plus, you have top-down digital transformation mandates where boards are just demanding modernization. But the biggest driver, the one pushing everyone over the edge, is the frantic pursuit of AI-native capabilities.
Right. Everyone wants the shiny new AI toys so they can meet tighter SLAs or service-level agreements. So they decide to just rip out their old instance and migrate to the newest tier of Salesforce Service Cloud or Zendesk or ServiceNow or Dynamics.
Exactly. But to really set the stakes here, we have to understand the ultimate fear. Because the fear isn't just downtime. An IT leader can stomach a system being offline for Saturday night.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just put up a maintenance page.
Right. The true nightmare is the permanent loss of institutional support knowledge. If you lose the context of your customer relationships during a migration, you aren't just starting over on a new software platform. You're starting over with your customers.
Wow.
You basically become a stranger to them.
And before we get into the brilliant architectural solutions for this, we have to look at the carnage. Because understanding how bloody these migrations usually get is, it's the only way to understand why a new approach is necessary. The data here made me physically wince.
Oh, it's grim. It's so grim. 70% of CRM migration projects either exceed their time, blow their budget, or just fail completely.
Wait, 70%?
7 out of 10. Think about that failure rate in any other industry. If 7 out of 10 bridges collapse, we'd stop building bridges.
We definitely stop building bridges.
Right. But enterprise leaders sign off on these migrations every single day, just assuming they'll be in the lucky 30%.
And the global impact is just staggering. Right. We're looking at an annual cost of poor data quality to global businesses hitting $3 trillion. Trillion. With a T.
It's wild.
Entire economy's worth of value just evaporating because of bad data.
And that data problem is the radioactive core of a migration failure. Over half of all companies face crippling data quality issues during the transition itself.
Why is that?
Because roughly 30% of an enterprise's CRM data is already entirely inaccurate before the migration even starts.
Oh, wow. So it's already broken.
Exactly. You have duplicates, outdated contacts, conflicting statuses. You are basically taking a polluted river and trying to pump it into a pristine new reservoir.
Right.
The new reservoir doesn't clean the water. It just gets polluted immediately.
Okay, I need to stop you there and push back a little because I think a lot of IT directors listening to this are screaming at their phones right now.
Fair enough, yeah.
If I am an enterprise IT leader and I am paying a massive consulting firm. Let's say I'm dropping $2 million on an integration partner to move me to a new platform. I've budgeted for the software licensing. I've budgeted for the implementation. Doesn't the platform or the consultant handle this ingestion? Why is this suddenly blowing my budget and destroying my year? What is the hidden trapdoor here?
It's a highly logical question. You think, I paid for the movers should handle the boxes.
Exactly.
But leaders budget for the pure mechanics of the move, the literal transfer of records. What they completely fail to account for are the second-order effects.
The second-order effects.
Yeah, the operational carnage that happens when the subtle architecture of the old system doesn't perfectly match the new system. Let's look at the first hidden cost manual rework caused by what we call schema mismatches.
Okay, break that down for me. What exactly is a schema mismatch, and why does it cause so much damage?
Think of a database schema as the strict grammatical rules of that specific system. In your old CRM, maybe you have a custom checkbox field that an agent clicks called high churn risk.
Okay, simple enough.
Right, it's a simple binary, yes or no. But in the new CRM you just bought, the default architecture for tracking churn isn't a checkbox. It's a mandatory drop-down menu called Account Health Status with required options like green, yellow, and red.
Oh, I see. So the old data literally doesn't fit into the new container.
Precisely. A binary yes or no cannot automatically map to a green, yellow, red system without custom logic being written.
Right, because what does yes mean? Is it red? Is it yellow?
Exactly. If your consultants don't catch that semantic discrepancy, that schema mismatch before they hit transfer, all of your high churn risk customers get dumped into the new system, the database rejects the binary input, and those accounts suddenly show up with no warning label at all.
So the data isn't lost, it's just rendered invisible. Or broken.
Right. And to fix that after the fact, you can't just hit an undo button. Yeah, you have an engineer exporting 50,000 customer records into massive CSV files, writing custom Python scripts to translate the old logic to the new logic, testing it, finding the edge cases where it broke, and re-uploading it in batches.
That sounds miserable.
It is. A single failed field mapping like that can burn 80 to 100 hours of highly paid engineering time.
Just for one field.
Just for one. And now multiply that by the hundreds of custom fields a typical enterprise uses. That is where your $2 million budget just evaporates.
That sounds agonizing.
Yeah.
But while the engineers are, in the basement writing Python scripts and panicking, what is happening on the floor? What is happening to the actual customer support agents who logged in on Monday morning to use this new system?
Absolute paralysis. And this is the second hidden cost massive productivity loss. When agents face a new user interface and entirely new workflows, their throughput drops by 20 to 40% for 4 to 8 weeks post-cutover.
40%. That's almost half your workforce effectively vanishing.
Yes, because muscle memory is just gone. They don't know where the escalation buttons are.
Right.
The process for logging a specific type of telephony ticket now requires 4 clicks instead of 1. They are constantly searching knowledge bases just to figure out how to do their jobs.
But they're spending all their time fighting the software instead of helping the customer.
Exactly. So for up to 2 months, your SLA compliance falls off a cliff. Hold times double. Customers are furious right after you send them an email promising that this new system upgrade would serve them better.
Oh, the irony. And it gets worse, right? Because the managers supervising these agents suddenly have massive blind spots.
Right.
Because if the old data fields didn't map perfectly, the old quality assurance dashboards that relied on those fields go completely blank.
Exactly. It's an executive blackout.
Right.
If you lose the historical case context, you ruin your escalation prediction models. Think about how you manage a team. You look at trends, right?
Yeah, of course.
If a customer has had 3 rough interactions in the past 6 months, your old system highlighted them. If that history gets scrambled in the schema mismatch we just talked about, your agent treats them like a brand new, perfectly happy customer.
Oh, man. The customer must feel completely gaslit. They say, I've been complaining about this bug since January. And your agent says, I'm sorry, I have no record of that in our new system.
That is the exact moment a $1 million account churns.
And then there's the legal side. You mentioned GDPR and CCPA earlier. If the data gets scrambled, you lose your audit trails. Right.
This is where it goes from a business problem to a legal crisis.
Right.
Under European data privacy laws, if an auditor asks to see the complete data lineage and interaction history for a specific user, and your response is, well, our data got a little corrupted during the CRM migration, so there's a 3-month gap.
Oh.
Yeah, you are staring down millions of dollars in regulatory fines. Regulators do not accept we upgraded our software as an excuse for data fragmentation.
Okay, so the stakes are basically existential. You could lose your best engineers to burnout, your agents are paralyzed, your managers are blind, your VIP customers are leaving, and European regulators are knocking on your door.
Pretty much.
Now that we understand the carnage, let's categorize the specific failure modes. Let's map this minefield. How do things actually break?
We can group these failure modes into a few distinct layers. Let's start at the foundational layer, the data layer. The most critical failure here is pure data loss or corruption.
Okay.
This is when the data doesn't just map poorly, it actively degrades during the transfer process due to timeout errors or API rate limits.
So it just drops in transit.
Exactly. To mitigate this, you need aggressive pre-migration audits and incredibly strict backup checkpoints. Then, sitting right next to that in the data layer are the field mapping failures we discussed with the churn risk example.
Right. And the engineering blueprints we're referencing note that mitigating those mapping failures requires intense visual reviews and real data sandbox testing. You can't just look at an Excel spreadsheet of your mappings, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely not.
You have to physically see how the data renders in the new environment's user interface.
Right, you have to see it.
But moving up from the data layer, we hit the intelligence layer. And this is the concept that really blew my mind. AI model continuity and the cold start problem.
What's fascinating here is that this is arguably the most dangerous and least understood risk in modern migrations. We hear so much hype about AI right now.
Oh, constant hype.
Companies are dropping millions to migrate specifically because they want the native AI features built into the newest CRMs. But AI isn't magic. It is highly dependent on its training substrate.
The training substrate. I love that phrasing. It makes it sound like soil that a plant grows in. You are ripping the AI out of its rich historical soil and dropping it onto bare concrete.
That's exactly what's happening. Think of native CRM AI like a brilliant executive you just hired to run your company.
Okay.
They might be incredibly smart in theory, but if you wipe their memory of your company's entire history on their first day, they are useless.
Right. They don't know anything about you.
They don't know who your angry clients are. They don't know the specific jargon your engineering team uses. When you migrate your data to a new CRM, the native AI in that new platform has to start learning your business from absolute zero.
Because it hasn't spent the last 3 years watching how your specific agents resolve your specific tickets.
Right. It takes 60 to 120 days for a native AI model to retrain on a new schema and start providing accurate predictive insights.
Wow, that long.
Yeah. That is the model cold start. For up to 4 months, you lose all your predictive capabilities right when your operations are at their most unstable and chaotic. You are flying completely blind during a hurricane.
So we have the data layer and the intelligence layer. The third layer of this minefield has to be the human and systems layer, right?
Exactly.
Stakeholder resistance is huge here. I mean, changing tools freaks people out. But the system side of this integration breakage is where things get incredibly technical and messy. We all know things break during a move. But what is actually snapping here?
Usually it's your webhooks and API endpoints.
Okay, explain what a webhook is for the listener who isn't a back-end developer.
Think of a webhook like a digital tripwire stretched between two different pieces of software. Let's say you have a rule in your old CRM. When a VIP customer submits a ticket with the word outage in the subject line, that tripwire snaps.
Okay.
It instantly grabs the ticket data and throws it over to a specific Slack channel so your top-tier engineers see it immediately.
Simple enough.
But those tripwires are highly sensitive to the structural formatting of the data they are throwing. If you move to a new CRM, the new system might package that ticket data in a slightly different JSON format.
Ah, I see where this is going.
If you forget to rewire that tripwire, or if Slack doesn't recognize the new formatting, the integration breaks silently. The VIP customer submits the outage ticket, the CRM catches it, but the tripwire fails.
Oh, no.
The ticket just sits in the CRM queue in absolute silence. The engineers in Slack never get the alert, the servers stay down, and the customer explodes.
The silent failure is the worst kind of failure. You don't even know you're bleeding. And that cascades directly into the final risk layer SLA degradation. Because your webhooks are broken and your agents are dealing with a new UI, your time to resolution skyrockets.
Exactly.
Your service level agreements with your enterprise clients are breached, and you start owing them penalty payouts.
When you look at all these layers, data corruption, amnesiac AI, broken webhooks, paralyzed agents, these aren't just technical glitches. They represent a complete breakdown of the promises a company makes to its customers.
So how do we survive the minefield? The blueprints outline a methodology, a strict set of practices for the mechanics of the data, and then a profound paradigm shift for the intelligence architecture. Let's dig into the mechanical prerequisites first.
The absolute golden rule, like the non-negotiable first step, is hitting a 95% data quality threshold before you move a single record.
95%. That's a high bar.
You have to run a comprehensive data audit. You are looking for duplicates, null fields, and deprecated objects.
Let's define those last two. What makes a field null or an object deprecated?
A null field is simply empty data where there shouldn't be. Imagine a required state or province field that somehow got bypassed by thousands of international users over the years.
Oh.
If the new system has a hard requirement that every user must have a geographic region defined to route the ticket to the correct regional support team, those null fields will cause the migration batch to fail and crash.
And a deprecated object?
Deprecated objects are the ghosts of old workflows. Let's say 5 years ago, your company sold a hardware product that you don't make anymore.
Right.
Back then, your CRM admins built a whole architecture of custom data tables, objects, to track warranties for that hardware.
Right.
Today, nobody uses those tables, but they are still sitting in the database, tangled up with your active customer records. If you try to migrate those deprecated objects, you are spending time, money, and computing power to move a digital graveyard into your brand new house.
So hitting that 95% quality score means going in with a machete and clearing out the nulls in the graveyards.
Exactly.
That transitions right into the detailed field mapping we talked about. But here is something I found fascinating in this strategy. It insists that both IT and support ops must be in the room together when mapping the fields. Why is that collaboration so critical? I mean, shouldn't IT just handle the database schema?
That is exactly the trap companies fall into. IT knows the strict architectural structure of the database, but they often lack the operational context. Support ops knows what the data actually means to the human beings using it.
Okay, give me an example.
Let's say IT looks at an old field labeled escalation tier 3, and they map it to a new field called priority high. From a purely technical standpoint, the data type matches. The script runs perfectly.
But I'm guessing escalation tier 3 means something very specific to support ops.
Exactly. Support ops knows that escalation tier 3 actually means the customer has directly threatened legal action, and the company's general counsel needs to be CC'd on every reply. Right. If IT maps that merely to priority high in a vacuum, the technical transfer is a success, but the critical business context is completely destroyed. A frontline agent treats it like a normal urgent ticket, fails to copy the lawyers, and the company gets sued.
That is terrifying. You absolutely must have the technical architects and the business operators sitting shoulder to shoulder.
100%.
That makes total sense. Next in the playbook is running a pilot migration. But not just any pilot. The strategy demands you run your absolute messiest data through a 5 to 10% sample size.
Yeah.
It's like test driving a 4x4 truck. You don't take it on a freshly paved highway. You drive it directly into a mud pit to see if the axles snap.
That's a great analogy.
You want to run your most complex edge case records, the ones with 50 replies, weird attachments, and merged histories, through the pilot. You have to break the system in a controlled environment.
Because finding a structural failure in a 5% pilot is a learning opportunity. Finding it during a 100% cutover is a resume-generating event for the IT director.
A resume-generating event. I love that. And that logic dictates the next rule, the phased trickle approach. Do not do a big bang cutover.
Right.
Like, don't flip a giant switch on Friday night, cross your fingers, and hope the whole global enterprise works on Monday morning.
You move user groups gradually. Maybe you move the European support tier 1 agents first. By trickling the migration, you severely limit the blast radius. Think of it like a ship with watertight compartments.
Okay.
If there is a leak in the data mapping, it only floods one small compartment, not the entire ship. You fix the leak, and then you open the next compartment.
And the final mechanical practice is preserving the historical case context. We talked about how this history is the training substrate for the AI models. But how far back are we talking? Do I really need to migrate an IT ticket from 2018 where a customer asked how to reset their password?
Well, you might not need a password reset ticket from 2018, but you absolutely need the semantic patterns of your major accounts over the last 3 to 5 years.
Semantic patterns.
Yeah, modern AI doesn't just read the tags on a ticket, it reads the human language. It looks at the subtle shift in tone an enterprise client uses over a 2-year period leading up to a massive renewal.
Oh, that's wild.
If you truncate that history to save on storage costs during the migration, you are essentially lobotomizing your predictive models.
Okay, those are the mechanics. But mechanics are executed by human beings. And this is where the framework pivots into human alignment and eventually a massive architectural paradigm shift.
Right.
Let's look at the human element. The framework highly recommends establishing a strict RACI matrix. For those outside of corporate project management, RACI stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. Now, I have to be honest. When I read RACI matrix, my eyes glazed over a bit. It sounds like middle management corporate fluff. Does a spreadsheet of acronyms really stop a migration from failing?
It sounds like fluff until you are in the middle of a war room at 2 a.m. on a Sunday because the Slack integration is dead and nobody knows who has the admin credentials to fix it.
Okay, fair point.
The data shows that 65% of failed migrations happen because of poor stakeholder engagement, not code failures. When ambiguity exists, people assume someone else is handling it.
Right, the classic bystander effect.
Exactly. IT assumes support ops tested the routing rules. Support ops assumes legal checked the data residency compliance. Legal assumes IT secured the endpoints.
And nothing gets done.
A RACI matrix isn't fluff. It is a legally binding contract within the company that dictates exactly who goes down with the ship if a specific integration breaks. It forces extreme accountability.
Fair enough. I retract my skepticism. Accountability prevents the silent failures. That ties right into testing those integrations in a sandbox environment.
The framework has an implicit underlying philosophy here. Production is the most expensive place to find a bug.
Think about rehearsing a play. A sandbox is an empty theater. If you forget your lines, you stop, check the script, and try again.
Production is opening night, live on Broadway, with the critics in the front row. If you haven't extensively tested your Gainsight, Jira, and telephony integrations in that empty theater, you are going to fall on your face in front of your most important customers.
And even with all that testing, things still go wrong, which is why the framework insists on iterative backups.
Yeah.
Not just backing up in the very beginning of the project, but backing up before each phase of the trickle migration.
Right.
Because if corruption strikes in phase 3, you don't want to roll all the way back to phase 0 and lose a month of work. You just roll back to phase 2.
Exactly.
After the trickle is done, you enter the hypercare period. 4 to 6 weeks of dedicated technical resources, aggressively monitoring leading indicators, looking for friction.
But here is where we need to take a massive step back.
Okay.
Everything we just discussed, the cleanups, the mapping, the pilots, the sandboxes, is how you survive a traditional migration. But Noppel-Settable's architecture introduces a fundamental paradigm shift that completely rewrites the rules of engagement.
Yes. Here's where it gets really interesting. The ultimate practice, like the silver bullet of this entire strategy, is decouple intelligence from the CRM. I want to spend a lot of time here because this completely changes how we think about enterprise software.
Let's look at the traditional model. For the last 20 years, companies have treated their CRM as both the filing cabinet and the brain.
Okay.
The data lives in the CRM, and the AI or the analytics that make sense of that data also live tightly coupled inside that exact same CRM software.
So the filing cabinet is the brain.
Exactly. But that creates a massive vulnerability. If your intelligence is trapped inside your infrastructure, then when you decide to swap out your infrastructure, like when you migrate from Zendesk to Salesforce, for example, you have to leave your brain behind.
Right.
You rip out the old filing cabinet, the brain goes in the dumpster with it, and you start from zero.
And that leads directly to the 120-day cold start toggler AI we talked about. So what is the alternative?
The alternative is deploying a CRM-agnostic intelligence layer. SupportLogic is the prime example here. You extract all the predictive AI, the sentiment analysis, the routing logic, and the QA automation, and you move it into a layer that floats above the CRM.
Above it.
Right. By decoupling the intelligence from the database, the AI survives the transition fully intact.
I was trying to figure out how to visualize this for someone who isn't a systems architect. It really is like the modern smartphone ecosystem, right?
Absolutely.
10 or 15 years ago, getting a new phone was a trauma.
Yeah.
Your contacts, your photos, your customized settings were all physically trapped on the hard drive of that specific piece of plastic.
I remember that.
When you bought a new phone, you sat there for hours manually typing in phone numbers, and you lost all your old text messages. Now, You buy a new glass rectangle, you log into your iCloud or Google account, and within 3 minutes, your wallpaper's there, your apps are in the exact folders you like, and your text history is perfect. The intelligence and the memory live in the cloud, completely independent of the physical hardware you happen to be holding. SupportLogic is essentially doing that for multi-billion-dollar enterprise support operations.
That is the perfect mechanical analogy. SupportLogic acts as a non-intrusive, lightweight connector. It doesn't replace the CRM. It just reads the data, processes the signals, and maintains the intelligence in its own cognitive cloud.
Wow.
And because it already sits above your old system, it actually natively manages the contextual transfer to the new system. But what is truly brilliant about this CRM-less architecture is how it solves the human problem.
Oh, the agent productivity drop.
Yes. It completely eliminates that terrifying 40% drop in agent productivity we talked about earlier.
Wait, how is that possible? If the underlying database changes, the agents still have to log into a new website, right?
Yeah.
How do they avoid the UI shock?
Through what the architecture calls embeddable CRM widgets, which are essentially highly secure iFrames.
Walk us through how an iFrame actually functions in this context.
Think of an iFrame like a magical window cut into a wall that lets you reach into another room. Inside the new CRM, let's say they just migrated to ServiceNow, the agent opens a ticket.
Okay.
Right there on the screen, embedded directly into the ServiceNow interface, is a SupportLogic window. That window looks, feels, and behaves exactly the same way it did in their old system. The buttons are in the same place. The sentiment scores look identical. The interface hasn't moved an inch.
So the agent is technically operating inside the new infrastructure, but their actual workflow is happening through this familiar window to the cognitive cloud.
Precisely. The engine in the car was completely swapped out overnight, but the dashboard and the steering wheel the driver is holding are exactly the same.
That's brilliant.
The agent doesn't even have to care that the database underneath them changed. They just keep doing their job with zero retraining.
That is genuinely wild. And what are they actually seeing and interacting with through these windows? The engineering breakdown lists a sheer variety of what it calls ambient AI agents. And I want to be clear to the listener, we aren't talking about one big generic AI chatbot that just summarizes text. It is an entire army of hyper-specialized AI agents operating simultaneously. Let's break some of these down and explain how they actually work. Let's start with the sentiment agent. How does an AI actually extract true voice of the customer without sending them a "how did we do" survey?
Well, traditional surveys are flawed because only extremely angry or extremely happy people fill them out. The sentiment agent uses advanced natural language processing, or NLP, to read every single interaction in real time.
Oh, right.
It isn't just looking for bad words. It looks at syntactic markers, keyword velocity, and even the structural cadence of the sentences.
Give me an example of what it catches that a human might miss.
Let's say a customer writes, "Great job pushing that update and breaking my entire integration."
Sarcasm.
Exactly. A basic keyword scanner sees "great job" and flags it as positive. The SupportLogic sentiment agent understands the contextual sarcasm based on the surrounding phrases and the historical baseline of that user's communication. It instantly flags it as highly negative and escalating.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
What about the voice agent? The documentation says it detects tonality and eliminates manual note-taking.
This is a massive leap forward. When an agent is on a phone call, the voice agent isn't just transcribing the words. It is analyzing the acoustic properties of the customer's voice pitch, volume, speech rate.
No way.
Yeah, it can tell if the customer is getting frustrated before the agent even realizes it. And because it is perfectly transcribing and summarizing the call in real time through the iFrame, the human agent doesn't have to frantically type notes.
That's huge.
They can actually listen and employ human empathy while the AI handles all the secretarial work.
Then you have the language agent, which handles auto-translation and grammar assist. So a support engineer in Bangalore can seamlessly help a frantic customer in Berlin, and neither of them realizes they aren't speaking the same language. The barriers just vanish. You have coaching agents that automatically QA 100% of interactions, rather than a manager randomly sampling 2 tickets a month.
Yep.
You have routing agents that know exactly which engineer has the specific expertise to handle a weird edge case bug. It really is an entire ecosystem of intelligence.
And we have to talk about how this ecosystem interacts with the broader world of generative AI, your large language models like Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini. This is where the SupportLogic MCP server comes into play.
Yes, explain the MCP server, because I know a lot of IT security directors get very nervous when you start talking about feeding enterprise data into LLMs.
Oh, absolutely. You cannot just plug OpenAI directly into your customer database. It's a massive security risk, and generic LLMs hallucinate because they don't know your business.
Right.
The MCP server acts as a highly secure grounding layer. It takes all the deep, nuanced context gathered by those ambient AI agents, the sentiment, the history, the routing logic, and it securely feeds only the necessary context to the LLM to generate a response.
So it's making the generic AI actually smart about your specific reality.
Right. A generic LLM knows how to write a polite, grammatically correct email, but it doesn't know that the specific customer it's writing to is highly agitated, has a $3 million renewal coming up in 2 weeks, and absolutely despises being told to check the FAQ.
Yeah, that would be a disaster.
Exactly. The MCP server grounds the LLM in that enterprise reality, and it does this behind enterprise-grade security perimeters. The architecture is SOC2, Type 2 certified, GDPR, and HIPAA compliant. You get the power of cutting-edge AI without compromising your data privacy.
Okay, so the architecture is brilliant. We have an army of ambient AI agents securely floating in a cognitive cloud above the CRM, accessed through magical iFrame windows.
Love that visual.
How does this decoupled intelligence layer actually change the real-world timeline of a migration? Does it actually make it faster and safer? The blueprints give us a concrete 4-phase, 24-week framework. Let's walk through it not as a checklist, but as a narrative of how a successful deployment actually unfolds. Phase 1 is the pre-migration assessment.
Right. This phase is all about establishing mathematical reality. Because SupportLogic sits on top of your existing system, you spend the first 4 weeks just letting it measure your baseline.
Okay.
What is your actual true escalation rate? What is the baseline sentiment of your customer base? How long does it actually take to resolve a ticket?
You have to know exactly where you are starting to prove you actually arrived somewhere better. You can't just ask the managers, hey, how does it feel? You need hard data.
Exactly. Then you move into phase 2, the pilot migration, running weeks 5 through 8. And this is where the decoupled architecture just shows off its power. You connect SupportLogic to the brand new empty CRM staging environment in parallel with the old live CRM.
This blew my mind. Walk us through how this prevents disasters.
You start pumping your pilot migration data into the new CRM. In a traditional migration, the only way you find out if the data mapped incorrectly is if an agent can't do their job or a customer calls to scream at you. In this architecture, SupportLogic is monitoring both systems simultaneously. The AI looks at the live system and sees the customer sentiment is an 8 out of 10. It looks at the test data in the new CRM and sees the predicted sentiment is completely broken or reading as a 2.
So the AI mathematically catches the structural field mapping errors before a human ever touches them. It's like having a supercomputer proofread your migration in real time.
Precisely. The anomalies throw alerts in the SupportLogic dashboard, not in your customer's inbox.
That's amazing.
Once you resolve those anomalies, you move to phase 3, the phased cutover. This is weeks 9 through 16. You start migrating your agents in waves. And because of those iFrames, there is zero re-onboarding for the intelligence layer. The agent logs into the new CRM, sees the familiar SupportLogic window, and starts clearing tickets at full speed on day 1.
Which leads directly into the final stretch, Phase 4 hypercare and optimization. For the last 2 months of the project, your dashboards act as your primary monitoring layer. If a specific routing rule in the new CRM is creating a bottleneck, SupportLogic flags the operational friction immediately.
Right.
You fix it before it ever metastasizes into a customer escalation.
This entirely flips the script on migrations. Instead of a chaotic, blind panic, it becomes a highly monitored, mathematically validated transition.
It sounds almost serene compared to the horror stories. But to justify this architecture, to actually convince a CFO to invest in a cognitive cloud layer like SupportLogic before a migration, we have to talk cold, hard numbers. We have to unpack the ROI.
We do.
Let's start with escalations because the financial math here is shocking.
An escalation is the most expensive failure state in customer support. This is when a major client issue goes unresolved by the front line and has to be pushed up the management chain.
Okay.
The data shows that a single enterprise escalation costs a company between $15,000 and $75,000 per incident.
I really need to pause on that number. $75,000 for one angry customer ticket. How did that math possibly add up?
It adds up incredibly fast when you look at the ripple effects. First, you are pulling your top-tier, highest-paid software engineers off of building new, revenue-generating products to fight a fire in the support queue. That is thousands of dollars in hourly labor and lost opportunity costs.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then you have vice presidents and sometimes C-suite executives getting on an hour-long apology call.
Right, you're burning executive time.
But the real financial hit comes from the contractual penalties. Massive enterprise contracts have strict SLAs. If you breach them, you owe the client a penalty payout.
Wow.
And to save the account from churning, the sales team usually has to offer a severe discount, like 20 or 30% off on their upcoming multi-million-dollar renewal.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah. Add up the engineering time, the executive time, the SLA penalties, and the discounted renewals, and $75,000 is actually a conservative estimate for a severe escalation.
So if a chaotic CRM migration causes a spike of just 10 escalations, you've just burned $750,000.
Exactly. The ROI argument is simple. The SupportLogic deployment pays for itself entirely if it prevents even a handful of escalations during the transition period.
The second massive ROI factor is killing that cold start AI problem we discussed. If you rely on native CRM AI, you are paying for a multi-million-dollar toddler that takes 120 days to learn how to walk.
Yep.
Because the decoupled models transfer instantly, you are getting day one value out of your intelligence. You don't lose a third of a year of predictive analytics.
And the third major ROI bucket is data recovery savings. We walked through how an engineer can spend 80 to 100 hours fixing a single schema mismatch.
Right.
Because SupportLogic handles the managed migration of the intelligence context natively, it eliminates massive swaths of that specific engineering cleanup. You are buying back hundreds of hours of your development team's time. They can focus on building your actual product, not writing Python scripts to fix broken checkboxes.
Okay, so the financial argument is rock solid. The architecture is brilliant. But before an IT leader listening to this actually pulls the trigger, they need to know they are ready. The blueprints provide a readiness checklist. I want to look at this not just as a list, but as the final fail-safes before launch. The first category is data readiness. You obviously need that 95% quality score we talked about.
Right.
And you need to ensure that 3+ years of history is verified as migratable. If your current system physically won't let you export the last 3 years of data, you cannot proceed.
The second category is technical readiness. This is where you verify your integration endpoints. Do you have a complete inventory of every single system that talks to your CRM?
Yeah.
Is your sandbox environment fully mirroring production? Has your pilot migration been mathematically validated by the AI?
Third is operational readiness.
Yeah.
Is the RDSI matrix not just written, but actively understood by every department head? And critically, do you have a tested rollback plan for every single phase of the trickle migration?
That's so important.
If phase 3 fails, do you know the exact sequence of commands to revert to phase 2 without data loss?
And finally, intelligence continuity. Have you validated your write-back capabilities?
Yeah. Let's explain write-back capabilities quickly.
Sure. It's not enough for the AI cloud to just read the CRM data. It has to be able to write insights back into the CRM fields seamlessly.
Oh, I see.
If the SupportLogic sentiment agent determines an account is at risk, it needs to be able to automatically update the health status field in the new CRM so other systems can trigger workflows based on that data.
Makes total sense.
You must test those bidirectional highways. And you have to ensure the iFrames are actually rendering securely in the new staging environment without firewall issues.
If you can confidently confirm those fail-safes are in place, you're ready to migrate. And if you can't, well, you have to stop.
Yeah.
Because ignoring those fail-safes is exactly how you end up in that grim 70% failure statistic we started this entire conversation with.
It is the difference between a controlled surgical transplant and a chaotic emergency room code.
So, synthesizing everything we've explored from these engineering blueprints today, the core thesis of modern enterprise architecture is staring us right in the face. Intelligence should never be trapped inside infrastructure.
Absolutely.
By decoupling your AI and your contextual memory from your underlying CRM, a terrifying, high-risk operational disruption transforms into a highly manageable, almost boring upgrade. As Nopal Setubal writes, the best migration is one your customers never notice.
That really is the ultimate triumph. The customer should only ever feel the improvements. They should never see the construction dust, and they should never have to remind you who they are.
Exactly. And I want to connect this underlying philosophy directly back to you, the listener.
Mm-hmm.
Because this concept isn't just for multi-billion-dollar enterprises.
No, not at all.
Whether you're managing a massive tech stack, or you're a small business owner trying to organize your operations, or you're just trying to manage your own personal digital life, maybe moving decades of files from an old laptop to a new ecosystem, the core principle holds absolute truth. Separating the brain, the intelligence, the context, the meaning, from the storage box, the hard drive, the database, the CRM, is the most profoundly effective strategy for surviving technological change. Do not let your intelligence live at the mercy of your plumbing.
It is a fundamental shift in how we value data.
Yeah.
The knowledge is the asset, not the container it sits in.
It really is. And I want to leave you with a lingering, provocative thought that builds on the implications of this decoupled architecture.
Okay.
If companies successfully follow this playbook, if they extract all their intelligence, all their sentiment analysis, all their routing logic, and all their predictive AI into an external CRM-agnostic cloud-like SupportLogic, does the underlying CRM eventually just become a dumb pipe?
Wow.
Think about it. If all the actual thinking, all the value generation, all the agent interaction is happening in the cognitive layer floating above, will the brand of your CRM even matter anymore in 5 years?
That's a great point.
Will enterprises even care if they are using Salesforce or Zendesk as long as it holds the data cheaply? In the future of enterprise software, will the external AI layer be the only platform that truly runs the business? Let that marinate.
That is the multi-billion-dollar question that is going to redefine the software industry over the next decade.
Until next time, keep diving deep.